Hey everybody, Zeal Brothers here once again with another video. And this one is about our boy Joe Biden. He cussed out a reporter because that reporter asked him about inflation. And he called him a stupid son of a bee, right? And we won't say the B that he said, but he said the actual word. And when you look at Joe Biden, there's a reason that he got so mad about that question. He got so mad because it's a good question, right? Anytime that a politician get that mad about a question is a good question. And the question is, what is he doing about inflation? Is what he's proposing going to make it worse or better? And here's the problem with inflation. Inflation is often considered to be the tax on almost everything because inflation is the idea, right, where your money is worth less simply because it is, right? You didn't do anything to make it worth less. It is simply a fact of the way that the economy is going. Typically, we get some inflation when the economy is growing a lot, right? But in situations where the economy is slowing down and you still have inflation, you have a huge problem. Some people even call it stagflation, the idea that the economy will stagnate and still inflate at the same time. And this is a huge problem. And it is something that we're seeing in the United States. And one of the things that you'll note is that there's really no good answer to this problem right now, because inflation is the kind of monster that if you want to beat it, it's kind of like cancer. You don't have any pleasant options to defeat it. And when let's just think about cancer, right? If you got cancer, you're going to do radioactive treatment. You're going to be sick as a dog. You're going to lose your hair. You're going to feel miserable. Some people have literally thought about dying just because they got treated to stop from dying, right? You're going to have surgery of some sort. You're going to have to take these pills, chemotherapy, all kind of stuff that you can do. None of them are pleasant because cancer is that dangerous. And I think the same is true of inflation. The Biden administration is acting like you're going to do some minor things to fix this, and you really can't. When you look at the rate of inflation that we've seen, it is unbelievable how much inflation we've seen over the last year, something like over 7%. And when you look at inflation, how do you stop it? Well, really, the only way to stop it is literally the last time it was this big. In the Reagan administration, what they did was they pretty much just killed the entire economy. And that was how they squeezed all the inflation out. And there's really no good options to stop inflation, especially with the ideas that Biden is proposing, because he's proposing more spending. And here's the problem. Increasing spending is an inflationary pressure. Think of it in this sense. Everything that you do is either going to put pressure on more inflation or is going to put pressure on less inflation. Spending more money increases inflation. Lowering taxes increases inflation. These are things that always happen, right? It is very hard for you to do something economically that falls into those two categories and do something that is not inflationary. That's just the way that it is. And when you look at all his major proposals, there's nothing that about cutting money, which would lessen the pressure on inflation, right? There's nothing about, let's just say, more production that would cut inflationary process, right? You could think of an extent that, let's say you lowered government spending, but then you increase domestic production. That could be something that could lower inflation and still increase our domestic product, right? But that's not something that's being proposed. So when you look at all these ideas that are being floated, a lot of it is more forms of welfare. A lot of it is more forms of public spending. A lot of it is giving money to people, just giving it, right? And those kind of things do tend to win votes. But what they are short-sighted policies that may excite somebody for 2 months, but when they go to the gas pump and they see that price keeps going up, they're going to ask why. And you have to look past the first stage. Thomas Sowell had this great economic book, which basically was just entitled something like Moving Past First Stage Thinking. And this idea that you wanted to move past just, hey, I want more money, give it to me. Like, that's not good economic policy, because everything that you do has a consequence. Spending more money has a consequence. All the stimulus had a consequence, and that consequence was inflation. So doing more stimulus, doing more spending will simply increase inflation, making the money supply so big for the feds, right? We got the dumbest group in the Fed that we've almost ever had. And it's just unbelievable to me that we got people who got doctorate degrees and doing all this spending, basically burning money. Well, let's just not say burning money, because if they burn money, that actually would make more sense to what they're doing. They're literally printing money out of control. If they burn money, that actually would be a good way of actually preventing inflation. Truth be told, they could actually do that. But what they're doing is they're printing money like crazy, and they're devaluing our currency by doing it. And when you devalue the currency, it is very hard to then turn that around. It is something that's like a snowball that's going downhill, and it is very difficult to stop. So that's why Biden called that reporter a SOB. It's because the reporter asked a question that he couldn't handle, and he's not with it, right? If you look at Biden, truth be told, everybody needs to realize this. This should not even be considered a political shot. This should not even be considered a right-wing thought or anything like that. Biden is not with it. He is not capable of running the country anymore. Doesn't matter if you're left-wing or right-wing. He is not with it at the way that he should be. He's too old. He's over the hill. And he can't properly run his administration. And that's why we see their administration running so many different ways, and they can't respond to different crises in a really distinct and proper way. So that's why you have Russia doing what they're doing. That's why you have China doing what they're doing. That's why you have inflation out of control. That's why you have no coherent response to the crime problem, no coherent response to the border situation, no coherent response to the economy. It is because we have an administration, and when you are president, it is like you got a million things coming at you at once. You got to be super competent to handle all that, and then create a narrative on your own that kind of binds your ideas together to say, this is what I'm for. When you're not with it, other people are doing that. And when other people are doing it, other people have different agendas. And that's why you have this administration going in like 6 different directions right now. Because all the different managers that are under Biden, they have so much power because he never calls them to heel. And I think a lot of it stems from how he even won the Democratic nomination. Because he didn't win it because anybody really liked him. He won it because nobody wanted somebody that was super left-wing, and nobody wanted a corporate Democrat. And so because they couldn't decide on people that the party truly liked, they had to pick him as like, hey, I don't hate him. But because we know that we're selecting you and you know you're our standard bearer, you're going to have to put this person in your administration. You're going to have to put that person in your administration. Oftentimes, he was making deals with people for them to get out the race, or deals with some people to stay in the race. Right? He was making these deals where people would have power behind the scenes if he became president. He was making short-term deals. And now that he's president, he doesn't have any control over the party. He doesn't have any control over administration because of the way he was elected. He was elected in a weak way. He was nominated in a weak way. And now he's ruling in a weak way. And we're seeing the consequences for that as a country.